Consent to search, and then about consent form for obtaining information.
And then what happened next?
We took some photos of the home, went through the home.
Well, where was Mr. Jensen and the other people that had been in the den when you were asking for this consent to search?
They were asked to leave, and they complied. I believe you exited the home also. There were some other people there. They exited, and we began to starting a log and securing the home.
You videotaped the entire premises?
Yes.
And that was before Mrs. Jensen had been removed?
Yes.
And then you videotaped it again after Mrs. Jensen had been removed?
Correct.
And then you photographed it?
We actually did photographs before we did the video.
And what happened with and what sort of items did you seize out of the residence?
Well, of course, there was the computer. We seized the computer. We seized, there were some bowls next to the bed where we found Julie Jensen passed. There was a blue bowl and a pink bowl. We gathered those two items.
What was in the blue bowl and what was in the pink bowl, if you can remember?
The blue bowl had macaroni and cheese in it with a spoon. It was a blue ceramic bowl. And the pink bowl had crackers, kind of the, maybe mispronouncing this, but the Weedables or something like that. Small square crackers were in that bowl.
Now, you still have those bowls, right?
Yes, I do.
What about the macaroni and cheese and the crackers?
I no longer have those.
And what happened to them?
Well, as this case has gone for the last 9 years, our evidence room was invaded by mice. And unfortunately, the mice ate the macaroni and cheese and the crackers that were in the bowl. Fortunately, I inspected that before the mice ate it for any type of antifreeze. But as we sit here today, I have the bowls and none of the food.
And, well, first of all, do you have the computer there behind you?
I do, sir.
Could you tell us what the exhibit number is on that computer?
This is exhibit number exhibit number S229.
Now, and the computer was not in that box, so why don't you open the box and show the jury the computer? Can you mark this as an exhibit? No, that's the, they call it a CPU, or the computer that you recovered from the Jensen residence?
Yes.
And where exactly was it located in the Jensen residence?
It was located in the den, the way the house is set up, if you remember from the video. You walk down the hallway to the left, there was Mark Jensen's and possibly Julie Jensen's desk, and down underneath was the CPU.
And what did you do with that CPU after you recovered it from the Jensen residence?
I put it into my car. I had some concern about back in '98, these computers are rather valuable, much more valuable, I would say, than they are now. This unit, I know they were about $2,000. And so I was concerned about nicking, scratching, or damaging this unit. So I actually put it in my car that I used in the back seat and drove it to the police department and then put it into my office and locked it evening of the 3rd.
You can put that on the floor and then return to your seat. So you brought, what did you do, what's the next thing you did with that computer?
I held on to it. At some point on December 17th, 1998, I drove it to the State Crime Lab in Madison, Wisconsin.
And what was that for?
I called there to make arrangements to get an analysis done of the computer.
And what happened when you arrived at the State Crime Lab on December 17th, 1998?
Well, as I arrived there, I called ahead and made arrangements because I wanted to look at the computer right away. One reason I wanted to look at it right away was because on December 4th, a person by the name of Ted Voigt handed me a letter. And that letter was addressed to me and Officer Cosman. I read that letter, of course, and I think most everybody else has. And then I wanted to see if there were any more hidden messages. I didn't know if Julie Jensen had any computer skills or anything like that. I wanted to see in the computer if there was any typed letters or any communication that was being left behind by Julie Jensen.
So that was your purpose in taking the computer to the State Crime Lab?
Right, and to get an analysis of it.
And so what happened when you arrived at the State Crime Lab on December 17th, 1998?
I got there, I spoke with an analyst there by the name of Brad Haller. He said he couldn't look at the computer right now, he didn't have time. And I pretty much insisted that he do look at it because I did call ahead of time to make a schedule. I drove all the way to Madison, and I explained to him why I wanted to look at this. This is a death investigation, this being December 17th. We still don't have a cause of death, and there possibly might be some information on that computer that could provide a clue into what Julie Jensen died of.
So what did Mr. Heller do then?
I insisted that he look at it. We then hooked up the computer, turned it on, and my computer skills back in '98 weren't very good, and I believe this was a Windows 98 operating system.
Did you say they were very good or were not very
They
good?
were not very good. They weren't that good. And then Brad Haller assisted me in hooking up the computer, firing it up, and we looked around a little bit.
And how long were you and Brad Haller on the computer looking around a little bit, would you say?
I don't recall.
Was it more than 3 hours or less than 3
It
hours?
was less than 3 hours. I would say it was probably less than an hour. Not very long. I didn't know my way around there that well. Brad did. I vaguely remember looking in the documents section, possibly. I'm not even sure of that. My memory's a little fuzzy from then.
But you didn't find anything of utility to you?
No, we didn't find anything that of value.
You said something about a letter. Tell me about the letter.
The letter, December 3rd, we were there at the house. We gathered a lot of evidence. And later on December 4th, Ted Voigt, who I learned later his name, lived just south of the Jensens. He came over as I was leaving the residence and asked that I speak with him, and he handed me an envelope with the name Ted Voigt written on the envelope. I spoke with him further, and then I put the envelope in my folder in my pocket, and I opened it later at the police department.
Do you have that letter with you?
Yes, I do.
Could you show us the letter? So where's the blow up of the letter? Is that over there or is it? Nope, must be over here. You have a letter there?
Yes, I do, sir. It would be State's Exhibit S-230.
And directing your attention to D4, is that the blown-up version or the larger version of that letter?
Absolutely.
So what's the exhibit number that you're holding there?
The letter is Exhibit number S-230.
So this is the original letter that you found when you opened up the envelope that had Ted Voigt's name on the outside?
It is, and the envelope is right here on the back.
And What did Ted Voigt tell you about this letter when he gave it to you?
Ted Voigt told me that he was instructed by Julie Jensen that in the event of her death, he was to give that letter to the police.
Which is what he did.
Yes.
And it was the contents of this letter that, to some extent, influenced your desire to have the computer looked at right away on December 17th?
Yes.
Did you attend the autopsy for Julie Jensen?
Yes.
And that occurred the day after her body had been discovered?
December 4th, yes.
And that was with Dr. Chambliss?
Yes.
Now, when you were at the autopsy with Dr. Chambliss, did you have any of the scene photos with you at that time?
No.
And Dr. Chambliss had not been at the scene, correct?
That is correct.
By the way, Your Honor, I request that State's Exhibit 230 be received into evidence subject to cross-examination.
That's the letter?
That's the letter, yes.
Okay.
And also, what was the computer, S229, the computer be received into evidence also subject to cross-examination?
No objection. Received.
So you said the scene photos were not there at the time of the autopsy?
No.
When you were at the autopsy, did Dr. Chambliss at that point express an opinion as to the cause of death?
He did not have one.
Did he discuss any potential, any things that he found that he thought might be a potential explanation for the cause of death?
No.
At any time in the ensuing weeks or months, did Dr. Chambliss ever indicate to you any potential suspicions that he had as to the potential cause of death?
Yes, he did.
When did those conversations occur, if you can recall?
I recall March of 1999. I met with Dr. Chambliss, Dr. Lavin, and yourself at the Pleasant Prairie Police Department to discuss the case.
And at that point, did either one of those pathologists offer any tentative opinions as to the potential cause of death in this case?
I would object to your saying Dr. Lavin, mostly calling Dr. Lavin. Sustained.
Your Honor, it's not being offered for the truth of the matter asserted, it's being offered as the basis.
And you don't have to say what, well, you could answer the question as to whether any of them expressed any opinion, but not what the opinion was.
Okay, did any of them express an opinion, a tentative opinion as to what the cause of death may have been?
Yes,
And did they have the same opinion or a different opinion?
they did.
I'm going to object on confrontation grounds into hearsay.
Now at some point in April of 1999, you interviewed the defendant, Mark Jensen, correct?
April 21st, 1999.
And that was a videotaped interview, correct?
Correct.
And now, at the time of that interview, what was your purpose?
My purpose was to ask Mark Jensen. I wanted to confront him on whether he had a hand in killing Julie. And I also wanted to find out some more information about the background. Plus, I also covered the issue of the prowlers and letters being left around the home as they reported over the years to the police department.
Now, by April of 1999, were you aware of any toxicology results that had been obtained in this case?
Before April 21st, 1999, because of some of the results on the crime lab that they found antifreeze poisoning, I made the medical examiner's office aware of that. And the medical examiner's office had some of Julie's fluids tested for antifreeze, in particular, I believe, the blood.
And that was at National Medical Services? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what were the National Medical Services results insofar as you knew?
There was no antifreeze in her blood or ethylene glycol.
So by the time you were interviewing Mr. Jensen in April of 1999, well, you'd had some information about ethylene glycol. None of that had been confirmed with the toxicology results?
When I interviewed Mr. Jensen in April, I was pretty much under the opinion that antifreeze was ruled out based on my conversations with the doctors and the results of the testing of the blood.
But at the time that you were interviewing Mr. Jensen, was he a suspect in this case?
Yes.
Now, at the time, by April of 1999, how long had you been a law enforcement officer?
You challenged me on that. In April of 99, 15 to 18 years.
Now, during the course of your experience as a law enforcement officer, had you ever had any training on how to conduct interviews and interrogations of suspects and witnesses?
Yes.
Is there a difference between an interrogation of a suspect and an interview of a witness?
Yes.
So what's the objective when you're conducting an interrogation of a suspect?
Well, there's actually a couple. I think sometimes we run into issues, being that I have 20-some years on, a lot of times in law enforcement, an interrogation, when you said the word interrogation, although it's not a legal view, is when you interrogate somebody, that means that they're in custody. And that was kind of an unwritten rule.
Object to that conclusion. It's a legal conclusion.
Well,
It's erroneous.
It's overruled. It may not be a correct statement of what is the legal usage, but I'm going to overrule the objection.
I just want to know your understanding of what the difference is between an interrogation and an interview. So just give us your impression of what the difference is between an interrogation and an interview, if there is a difference.
There is. An interview is probably something a little bit more softer. You might want to interview a witness as opposed to interrogate a suspect.
And so when you interview a witness, you're just trying to get information from them?
Sometimes in our business, you got to interrogate witnesses too. Sometimes that becomes necessary.
So what is the objective with an interrogation insofar as it's different from an interview?
Well, in both cases, you ask harder questions in an interrogation. You're probably a little bit more aggressive.
And during the course of an interrogation, do you sometimes lie to a suspect?
Yes.
Have you been trained that that's an acceptable police practice to lie to a suspect?
Yes.
Well, is it ever an acceptable police practice to lie in a report?
No.
Is it ever an acceptable police practice to lie in a courtroom?
No.
But it is acceptable police practice to lie to suspects.
Yes.
Why is it okay for a police officer to lie to a suspect?
Well, generally, and I've used this technique several times, somebody's lying to you, and then you will lie to them. As an example, I can recall...
Well, we'll get to an example later in a bit, but first of all, explain to me the rationale underlying why you would lie to a suspect, what's your purpose to be served?
The truth. Generally, we'll lie to get the truth, and where the suspect or the person you're speaking of will generally lie to cover up the truth.
So how is it that...
I object and move to strike.
I think that, would I be correct in understanding your answer to mean that it is, you may have the feeling that the suspect will lie to cover the truth, as opposed to, in fact, any individual suspect will lie?
That is correct, Judge.
The answer was that is correct. All right, go ahead.
I still move to strike the last answer.
Well, with the understanding that he doesn't know whether an individual suspect is lying in a given case, and certainly is not allowed to venture an opinion in this particular case.
And I'm not going to ask him that.
It is the thought process of the officer which animated his activities in this case, his assumptions.
Certainly, Officer Ratzburg, or Lieutenant Detective Ratzburg, there have been times when you've suspected somebody of doing something and it turns out they didn't do it, right?
Correct.
You're not infallible.
No, absolutely not.
And there are times when you've suspected somebody of doing something and it turns out your suspicions were well-founded, right?
Correct.
Now, and there have been times when you're trying to determine whether the suspect in front of you is telling you the truth when they've denied it or when they're lying to you when they've denied it, right?
I object to this officer's determination of what truth is. It's not relevant.
Again, folks, ultimately you are going to decide what the truth of all matters in dispute in this case is. And neither I nor the witness nor anybody else is in a position to supplant your role. he's talking about the technique which is employed and why he does certain things in a certain way, and you should accept it only as an explanation for why he does what he does, and not as to whether or not he correctly surmises when someone's lying or not. Is that, any question about that? Go ahead.
Why don't you give me an example of a case unrelated to this case where you've lied to a suspect and it had the desired, in other words, your intended result of getting the suspect to tell the truth.
Objection, not relevant.
I recall there was a case not that long ago where we had a local dealer had his RV stolen. He thought that possibly the person that stole the RV was a guy that came in the night before and looked at it. That person came in, he gave me his description, which I won't go into, and then about a week, and he thought he stole it. About a week later, another jurisdiction, in fact, it was in the state of Illinois, recovered the stolen RV with this person inside of it. Well, I went to that jurisdiction and spoke with him, and he said, look, I just found this laying around. I didn't steal it. I just saw it there with the keys in it, and so I decided to start driving it around. Well, based on the description from the victim, I spoke. He looked like the guy. He was an older gentleman, graying hair with glasses. Well, as I started to speak with him,
By the way, that looks like me too, all right?
And Judge, I have 904,
Right for a minute,
the relevance and 90403.
Overruled.
Then at that point, I figured that was the guy, but he was telling me that he found the vehicle. And then I told him, I says, look, the place has a video camera. I played the video, and I'm sure as I'm sitting here that that's you, and you stole that RV. You were there the night before, looked at it, got in, broke into the RV, and stole it. And he told me, he says, yes, that was me. Boy, I didn't think you guys had video. No, I didn't have any.
Did you guys have video?
No, we didn't.
So you lied to him about the video,
Yes, I did.
but then he told you the truth about stealing the RV.
Yes, yes.
By the way, I bought my RV and I've got the receipt to prove it.
Okay, well.
So that's an example of why you might lie to a suspect, to get them to tell the truth.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, on April 21st, 1999, when did you said you had an interview with Mark Jensen.
I did.
And tell us about when that interview started and how it was that you ended up interviewing Mark Jensen on that day.
Well, myself and Mark Jensen have been talking about the case for, boy, since his wife died. We were in weekly contact with each other. I set up an appointment after I met, like I stated, with the MEs and yourself, and we got together at approximately 9 o'clock on April 21st, 1999 in the police department. He came into the police department. He had his 2 children with him. We went into the conference room, and then from there we moved into the interview room back in the Detective Bureau and began our discussion.
Well, what happened with the 2 children?
One of our secretaries watched him for a while. Now that I think about it, there may be an error. Because I remember later on we spoke with another child. I may be an error on that, but
Error on what? That he had the children with him? Or
they had 2 children there. I believe possibly he may have only had 1 child with him.
So how long was Mark Jensen at the Pleasant Prairie Police Department as you conducted this interview with Mark Jensen?
He got there about 9 a.m. We probably, in fact, I recall he got there early. And we approximately talked till at probably about 4 p.m.
And so the 1 child was there the whole time?
I believe so, yes.
And was this interview videotaped?
Yes.
Now, did you lie on occasion to Mr. Jensen during the course of this interview or interrogation?
More than once.
Can you tell the jury about some of the things you lied to him about?
Well, we went into, when I started talking to him, I wanted to see if he was going to tell me the truth. And I brought up the Perry Tariq.
I object to any statements from this witness as to what the truth is and what is not the truth.
No, I'm going to allow them, but as I've said before, and I think the jury understands, what he thinks of the truth is the truth may in fact not be the truth, and as he's admitted, there have been occasions when he thought something was not the truth that turned out to be true, and vice versa. So it's received with that understanding, and under no circumstances may you accept his belief as to what is true and not true, as to any point, as being proof of that.
And Judge, I cite Hazelton and his progeny.
And the objection's overruled. Go ahead.
So you had some perception of what you thought, how things had gone, correct?
Yes,
And you were confronting Mark Jensen insofar as what he was telling you was not consistent with what you perceived things to have been.
yes,
And in order to bring him around to your way of thinking, on occasion, you would lie to him.
yes.
Tell us the first thing that you can remember lying to him about.
And it was probably, we were talking about a postcard that was left supposedly on his vehicle. And this was an investigation, I believe, that was done in 1996. And we had that, myself and Officer Cosman, we worked together a little bit on that. We were keeping each other informed what was going on.
Well, just tell me what lie you told him about that. What did you lie
I lied
about?
to him that the crime lab determined that the handwriting on that particular item was in fact his handwriting when it was not his
Okay, so
handwriting.
you'd never had any such crime lab report,
No,
but you told him that you did.
yes.
And your purpose was to do what?
My purpose was to see how he would react to that and what his response would be.
And he denied that that was his handwriting, didn't he? Or what did he say about it?
And he denied that it was his handwriting.
Now, you also asked him about whether or not he was having an affair with Kelly Labonte in the weeks and months preceding Julie's death, correct?
Yes.
And what did Mark Jensen say to you about whether or not he was having an affair with Kelly Labonte in the weeks and months preceding Julie Jensen's death?
He was telling me that they knew each other, and before Julie died, that they never had any contact, including sexual contact. However, later after, they did have, they were seeing each other, dating, I think was the word we used.
And you spent a fair amount of time on that, didn't you?
You know, when you're there talking, going back and forth, you begin to lose track of time a little bit. I couldn't give you if it was very long or not. It was a long day.
Did Mark Jensen ever admit to you during the course of that interview that he had sexual relations with Kelly Labonte in the weeks and months preceding Julie Jensen's death?
No,
And he denied that.
yes,
Now, you'd also, at some point during the course of this investigation, you'd interviewed Kelly Labonte, correct?
yes, I did.
At the time that you interviewed, was it named Kelly Labonte or Kelly Greenman or Kelly Jensen? Do you remember?
I know it was not Kelly Jensen. I don't know if it was Greenman or Labonte at that time.
Well, she admitted to commencing a sexual relation.
Do we have a time frame?
Well, when did you interview her?
When I arrested Mr. Jensen, which was March of '02.
So you interviewed Kelly in March of '02.
Yes,
And did you ask her about when she commenced having a sexual relationship with Mark Jensen?
yes, I did.
It doesn't strike me as being offered to prove that which was declared by the declarant, that is, whether she had had sexual intercourse with the, all right.
I'll withdraw the question, Your Honor. It's, now, when you were interviewing Mark Jensen on April 21st, 1999, did you tell him that the whole thing was being videotaped?
I did not.
But pretty much the whole thing was videotaped, or most of it was videotaped, wasn't it?
Well, pretty much most of it. Unfortunately, we had Detective Berg was assisting me. She was operating a videotape, and we had, one of the tapes did fail. We discovered that one of the tapes did fail, and then went back into the room and we recapped with Mr. Jensen on what happened and what we said on the third tape.
Well, let's get back to the autopsy. This occurred on what date?
December 4th, 1998.
So And you were at the autopsy.
Yes,
And after the autopsy, you still didn't know really how Julie Jensen had died.
yes. We did not.
And as of the time of the interview with Mark Jensen in April of 1999, you really still didn't have any definitive answer as to how Julie Jensen had died, did you?
We did not.
You said that you seized some other items at the house.
Yes,
You seized some bowls. Let's see this item marked States Exhibit 233. Tell us what that is.
States Exhibit 233 is the bowl that we recovered from the Jensen bedroom where Julie Jensen was. It's the blue bowl. It had macaroni and cheese in it. You can see where the mice ate through here. That's the bowl here.
And then I see some jars there. What are those?
These are jars. Actually, they also have crime lab labels on them, as does the bowl, because I took these items up to the crime lab to have them tested once we discovered antifreeze. I took them to the crime lab. And States Exhibit 234 When we were also in the house, what we did is we, not all of them, but the middle bathroom and the master bathroom, we dropped the drains in the bathroom. Lieutenant Hunter and Lieutenant Riley primarily did that. They unscrewed the trap and they put the sample of the water into this container. And States Exhibit 234 is from the middle bathroom drain. Go on, sir.
Yes, go on.
States Exhibit 235 is the water from the trap at the Jensen home, which what we kind of labeled as the middle bathroom. States Exhibit 236 is water. There was, along with these two bowls, there was a blue cup, a plastic type cup on the bed. And we took the water, let me rephrase that. We took the substance that was in that glass and put it into this container that was next to the bed.
And that was all sent to the state crime lab?
That is correct.
For what purpose?
To be tested for ethylene glycol.
Was there any ethylene glycol found in any of those items?
No.
What else did you recover from the residence that was tested by the state crime lab?
One other item that I had sent up there as the investigation continued, I sent the letter that Ted Voigt gave me to the crime lab. And some of the things I sent along with that, this here is Julie's Jensen's calendar.
What's the exhibit number?
The exhibit number is S239.
And how do you know that that's Julie Jensen's calendar?
Well, it has JCJ on the front of it here. And I recall that Lieutenant Hunter and myself recovered this from the Jensen home on December 3rd.
Could you open that up, please? What's the exhibit number again?
The exhibit number is 239.
Now, what did you find when you looked inside there?
Well, actually, what was also inside here, we haven't covered it yet, but there was the checks that were an envelope of checks that was in here along with a statement. And inside of this, there's a variety of things inside here. Notes, cards, appointments.
Was there, did you ever find any kind of a log that Julie Jensen had kept?
Yes, Lieutenant Riley found a log in the bedroom in a locked, for lack of a better term, dresser desk.
Well, he's a lieutenant now. He was an officer then, right?
That is, he was actually sergeant, I believe, then. He's
Sergeant.
lieutenant now, yes.
And where is that item? You can put that back in the bag again. Where is the log?
I have the log right here behind me. Julie Jensen's log would be State's Exhibit 231.
Now, how do you know that was Julie Jensen's log?
Well, it was rather distinct. Her handwriting's on there continually. As me and primarily Officer Cosman spoke with Julie over the years about some of her harassing phone calls and some of the things that were going on around the home. I recall when I spoke with her, I suggested she start keeping a log. And as I looked in here, I could see where she was keeping track of...
Objection to testifying about contents of an item not in evidence.
Well, it would have to be a question and answer basis. The objection sustained.
Well, did you ever display or show that log to Mark Jensen?
Parts of it,
And did he identify it?
yes.
What did he say about it?
He identified it, and when I spoke with him, he identified some of the items as coming from his home.
He identified it as what? What did he tell you it was when you showed it to him?
That it was Julie's,
That was Julie's what? Her log?
yes.
I'd request that be received into evidence subject to cross-examination.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's the objection?
90802, and I don't believe it satisfies 90803 sub 6.
I don't know what those sections are, Your Honor, but this witness just indicated the
Why
defendant...
don't I look at it and then I'll hear you.
Well, then I'll look at it too. 90803, I think he said.
No, it's been identified, the objection's overruled.
So let's open it up.
Will be received.
Just put that down here and you can just open this up.
Judge, to be clear, is the court finding that it satisfies 90803 sub?
The article itself does. Now, whether individual contents is quite another matter.
And I think the court's sort of getting at where I was going. I think it requires, the interpretation requires speculation in my view.
I beg your pardon?
I believe the interpretation requires speculation unless it satisfies 90803 sub 6, and I haven't heard any such evidence.
Up to this moment, there has not been any objection that could be sustained, but you'll have to approach this on a question-by-question basis, and it'll have to be individually determined.
Now, show me what portions of this you showed to Mark Jensen.
I don't know what portions I did show him or not. I would know exactly which portions.
Well, what did Mark Jensen tell you about that when you showed it to him?
Well, I mentioned it to him. I probably talked more about it than recalled showing him to it.
What did you say to him about it? What did he say to you about it?
Wanted to know if it was accurate, and if he knew anything about,
And I object under 971-23 sub 1B.
Well, given the hour and the fact that it appears that there's some degree of contention about this, is there another matter that you can cover with the lieutenant, and we'll come back to this after we've had a chance to discuss it?
That's fine. I show this item that's been marked as, we'll put that all back together first. I show this item has been marked as State's Exhibit 232. Can you tell me what that is?
State's Exhibit 232 is a day planner that we recovered from the Jensen home on December 3rd.
Where was it?
It was in Mark Jensen's briefcase in his den.
And did you ever show that item to Mark Jensen?
Yes,
And what did he say it was?
it was his planner,
I'd request State's Exhibit, was it number on that, 232?
232.
I request State's Exhibit 232 be received into evidence subject to cross-examination.
It will be received.
Could you open that up, please? And I noticed there's some pages here with lining on it, and this says Tony Stellan's got a number, and what's the copyright date in the bottom left-hand corner there?
The copyright date is 1997, Franklin Covey, C-O-V-E-Y, C-O period. I imagine it stands for company.
Now, what year day planner was this?
This was a 1998.
So this was Mark Jensen's 1998 day planner.
Correct.
Now, directing your attention to directing your attention to September 1998. There's what, 2 pages here indicating September, actually a number of pages for September 1998. This is the information that was found on Mr. Jensen's day planner?
Yes.
And it indicates, for example, on September 2nd, he was in St. Louis, or actually it says Star, St. Louis, correct?
Correct.
Well, objection. It doesn't indicate that he was in St. Louis.
Just have them.
I corrected myself. I said it just says Star, St. Louis, correct?
I don't understand why I'm just, that's not what I heard, and I'm making a proper objection.
Here. You said it indicates he was in St. Louis. Now, does it say I'm in St. Louis?
No. And
All right, then just what it says.
I understand, and I thought I'd corrected myself, and apparently I didn't do so sufficiently so that the court and counsel could hear. So I will restate the question. This says Star, St. Louis, correct?
Correct.
For September 2nd. Then there's another indication, September 11th, Star, St. Louis, correct?
Actually, it has Star, St. Louis, and then Lighthouse.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Lighthouse appears underneath it.
Correct.
Right? But it does say Star St. Louis up here and then Lighthouse underneath, right?
Yes.
And now here, on September 17th, there's another star, and it says Dr. Cosney, 1 p.m., right?
Correct.
And on September 18th, there's another star, and it says call, correct?
Yes.
Star, and it says call, C-A-L-L. Now, what does it say on September 19th?
September 19th has written down in pencil, it's KL-MAR period, and then underneath that, 5 o'clock.
Now, during the course of your investigation into this matter, did you ever obtain the marriage certificate for Kelly and Mark Grieman?
Yes.
And on what date was it that Mark Grieman married Kelly Labonte?
September 19th, 1998.
Turning to November, is there any indication in November about when, any notation in November about St. Louis? Or Blueprint?
Yes.
Okay, tell us what you see in November that indicates any notations regarding St. Louis or Blueprint.
On November 5th, there's a star. It has the words written in blueprint, and it has MGR 130, and then further down it has 930. On November 6th, there's another star, and what I mean by star, it looks like a star. It has blueprint written in there for November 6th, which is a Friday. November 7th, which is a Saturday, another star, and the word blueprint.
And at some point during the course of the investigation, did you ascertain what the blueprint was and what the significance of November 5th, 6th, and 7th was?
Yes.
With respect to the blueprint, tell the jury what you found out and how you found it out.
Objection, hearsay.
Why don't you start off with how you found it out, and then we'll go to what you found.
Who did you ask about that?
Well, there's been several people. I recall Ed Klug, when I spoke with him, he mentioned that they were there in St. Louis.
Objection, hearsay.
The objection is sustained.
Who else besides Ed Klug did you talk to about the significance of November 5th, 6th, and 7th and blueprint?
That incorporates hearsay.
Who else did you talk to? Incorporates hearsay?
No, just a minute. I think I'm going to allow the answer. Go ahead, if you can identify the person to whom you spoke.
Mark Jensen told me about the time in November that he was in Blueprint.
What did he tell you about that, if you can remember?
Well, he told me he was there, that one time he tried to get in touch with his wife, and he tried to call her, and she was sick.
Did he tell you why he was there or what he was doing there?
Something to do with his employment.
Anybody else you talked to besides Ed Klug and the defendant, Mark Jensen?
Not that I recall.
Did you ever make any effort to link up notations on that calendar with the times that had been provided to you by the Division of Criminal Investigation or the State Crime Lab as to computer usage?
Yes.
Tell us what you did in that respect.
Well, we examined.
Can I object on hearsay grounds?
Well, this question is non-objectionable on hearsay grounds, so overruled.
I went through this calendar. The people at DCI, the Department of Criminal Investigation, went through it, and they came up with a calendar showing the internet use.
All right, go ahead. Showing the what?
The internet usage and a correlation between this planner.
And so the information that was provided to them about St. Louis or when there may be a vacation was based upon the information you found on this calendar?
Correct.
Directing your attention to daily record of events, November 1998, Monday, November 2nd, 306th day, 59th day left. What does it say there at the top?
Big questions / big issues. I can't quite make that out. Are you happy? Why chase the funky? And again, these are underneath each other going down. Is the banter going to work for you? Period. Really? Continue, sir.
Yes.
The next line is what? Aspirin over the weekend. The next line below it has how. The next line below it is why.
Okay. Directing your attention to the daily record of events, November 4th, 1998. And starting right here, can you read what that says?
Wednesday, November 4th, withdrawn / looks like LAYSON, Layson, or
Liaison.
Liaison. The next line below it is, I'm not sure if that's an R or a P, but it looked,
Well, let's say withdrawn, lays on bed.
that would be correct, yes. And then a comma. And then knees, pulled up, then it goes to another line to chest. The next line is aspirin, a lot. The next line is not dealing with life. The next line is day, it could be day to day, it could also be day to dog, a
Day-to-day activities, too much, crying.
yes.
And then directing your attention to November 1998, Thursday the 5th. They make reference to an order number.
That is correct,
It looks like for Franklin Covey.
yes.
And down here it says, well, what does that say there on, is it called till 1:30?
Called till 1:30, starting at 11, and that's the next line. The next line is no answer. Next line, finally Buddy couldn't
Wake up.
wake up groggy. Yes.
Now, where did you recover this from? What does it say there?
It looks like the first line is puked on carpet over weekend. Get into the weather to,
Got into it whether to get it cleaned. Is that what that says?
yes.
And directing your attention to November 1998, daily record of events, Tuesday the 10th. There's notation there indicating a $sign, correct?
Correct.
And what appears underneath that?
Dan / or I should say a mark, Missy. Time I can waste. The next line is Denver, and then St. John's Wort.
And what does it say up here?
Life is hard, but it's harder if you're stupid. and right below that is Klug, K-L-U-G.
Now what's this right here?
There's an address on there, which is 14262-2 Willow Bend Park, Chesterfield, Missouri, MO, period, with a zip code of 63017.
Did you ever ascertain whose address that was?
Yes, I did.
Whose address is it? Or was it?
And I can't recall without looking it up, but it was either Kelly Labonte or Mark Riemann, depending on what their names were.
Now, what's this on November 16th, Monday? What does it read up there?
It's got 20 with a circle around it, and below that is withdrawn kids, boat / Jelensky. Below that is locked chest, and then below that is crying about miscare.
Which looks like short for miscarriage.
That would be my assumption.
Now, I noticed that on some of these, you have a Post-it, a part of a Post-it note, and it reads Julie photo, correct?
That is correct.
And what does that signify?
The photos that Officer Cosman recovered from Julie Jensen, I took those photos, examined them, and compared them to the planner of Mark Jensen that we recovered on December 3rd.
So these pages that have the Post-it note are the pages where that indicate that was a page that Julie photographed?
Correct.
So Julie photographed the page indicating the blueprint?
Yes.
November 5th, 6th, and 7th?
Yes.
And then Julie photographed Monday, November 2nd, 1998, the appointment schedule and the daily record of events? Or did she photograph both of these, do you know, or just one?
I'd have to look at the photos to compare them.
Oh, let's do that. I'm looking for the 8x10 photos that were taken of the day planner. Well, looking through here, I can find this page, this
Page. I don't see that one either.
See if I find this other one here.
Well, we've got some matters to talk about anyway, so there's no sense if these good people need to stick around. So let's break for the day, and let me ask that you return at 8:55 tomorrow. And in the meantime, please don't listen to, watch, or read any media account of the trial, and don't talk about the case in any way. And it's up to 8 degrees. And the low tonight only 6, or I should say only going down to 6. High tomorrow, 24. What more could you ask? Enjoy the evening.
All right.
Which was the logbook attributed to Mrs. Jensen? Which is number what?
I forgot the exhibit number.
231.
320.
231. And you objected on a notice rule, is that right?
Well, at some point, he was starting to describe what Mark Jensen supposedly had told him. We didn't have a date or time or foundation on that, but it's not something I recall in the discovery that I was ever told anything about Mark Jensen's statements about that log. That's not something I recall.
Is that in the recording, or is that?
It's on page 61 of the of the interview between Paul Ratzburg and Mark Jensen, and it reads as follows. Question, because I see here in the report, it goes on, she's got notes here. Are you aware that she's got this here, this diary or whatever? Answer, yeah. She kept track, question, she kept track of everything and all that. Answer, the phone calls and everything. Question, yeah, quite a bit here. Answer, right. Question, so, answer, no, I understand. Now, as far as answer, I think she had some fun with it too, honestly. I mean, as much as she liked the upset of it. So,
Like the what?
she liked the upset of it.
It doesn't sound like that's about the log.
Well, it certainly sounded like that earlier.
The 60, no, I agree. Part of the problem is I don't know what he's about to say that Mr. Jensen said. I don't think anything about that portion being read establishes the admissibility of this document.
But you're not objecting to the identification and authenticity of the document, but rather to the content?
Yes, I think he had already said something about about Mr. Jensen saying that was the log, and I don't think I had an objection to that part of it. And then
What are you objecting?
Well, I objected on the notice grounds because I thought he was going to go into some areas that I hadn't heard about. I am objecting.
You're now withdrawing that?
On the notice?
Yes.
If it doesn't go any further than what's on page 61, I don't have any objection at all.
Oh, how could it go further?
I don't know, he could say all sorts of things, but
He stated that the accused identified this as being the logbook of Julie Jensen. Is that fair?
correct.
So
That is
we're
correct.
in the door. What else is there?
well, the content.
Content is another matter. Now you're
Yes, that's right.
Are you saying you were deprived of access to this document?
No.
Well, then you have notice of the content.
Yes, no, I'm not complaining about notice of the content. At that moment,
Well, is there a notice issue?
no, there's not a notice issue.
Okay, now what's up?
I don't think the content's admissible. That would be my
Because?
first objection.
Well, before we get into, because there's thousands maybe of entries here, I don't know. Why don't we identify which ones you have objection to?
Well, first find out what I want to introduce. Then you can see if
That's the way to go. And I think, why should I stick around for that? Let's let you two giants of the legal world work through that. You can identify what you want to ask about. He can identify what he wants to object about.
have him identify
Pardon
the
me?
log of the activities that she was keeping track of, the hang-up phone calls and the things that Mark Jensen had told her about what was happening at work.
Well, we don't, here's the problem. I don't know that any of these things are contemporaneously recorded or that they satisfy the business records exception. I don't think there's any foundation for admitting them under that, and therefore their interpretation becomes speculative and inadmissible. There's no foundation.
If the objection
I
as to
know
whether
it
or
is.
not they're contemporaneous or not, one would think that the same principle which underlay the Supreme Court's decision in State versus Jensen would vault that hurdle.
Well, I think there's a due process issue then there too, in addition to the confrontation issues, which of course I've already reserved. But and the hearsay problem as well. I think to take anything somebody writes down at any time and just say, well, if it's Julie Jensen that wrote it down, then we're all free to guess at what's going on here and put it into evidence. I think relevance, 90403, lack of foundation.
I don't want, this is exactly why I don't want to
Well, I just need to
have
have
a
it on the
shotgun
record.
onto everything that's on those pages. I'm just telling you, why don't you gentlemen do as I've suggested, with the guiding principles being that any objection you're going to express on contemporaneity would seem to me to be eclipsed by the decision of the Supreme Court regarding the forfeiture encountered by one who causes the death of another, as proved by a reasonable greater weight of the evidence, and also as to assertions of fact contained therein. Now, you may present another matter to the court if she's reporting hearsay from another source, or if she's, for example, speculating, those types of things, those may be fair objections.
Well, I think the whole thing is suspect on due process and reliability grounds. The hearsay rules are designed to ensure reliability, and maybe that's an objection I've made previously on due process and confrontation grounds. I don't think forfeiture covers all hearsay objections, and at some point, the court does have a gatekeeping role in preventing unreliable evidence from being heard, and I think this, as a whole, lacks sufficient foundation to be admitted.
And I don't want to approach it as a whole, because it has to be, as, if you remember back to the earliest evidentiary rulings, I think that these things, I felt that these things had to be broken down statement by statement and analyzed, and that's what I'm afraid we're facing in this case. But I'll let you do the groundwork, you and Mr.
Well, Your Honor, we're not going to agree, obviously, but
What?
we're not going to agree.
You are going to agree. I've given you some general rules, and my estimation is that he can make a formal, well, maybe you're right, maybe you won't agree, but maybe we can at least reduce it to a couple of sentences of argument on the general points in discussion without having to go through every single entry, because I'm not
going to go through every central. Let me just tell you what I want to introduce, and he's going to object it, and then you can make a decision. I think overruling his objection, and what I intend to introduce is each page of this report, of this diary, where it is clearly a log, and where I'll just give you an entry: 2:14:92, 10:07 a.m. Hang up calls at home. And then 10:07, 10:08, 11:09. And it's underneath that, it's got these quote marks indicating that is the same thing. Then 2:17:92, 10:35 a.m. Hang up call at home. It's real obvious what this is. And furthermore, there's a letter here from the phone company, and it describes their responsibility to keep a log of the exact time of each call. And that's exactly what she's doing here. And there's other descriptions of harassing behavior. 3:21:96, parent Thursday, pictures left on Mark's truck at office. 3:28:96, parent Thursday, about 4 p.m., hang up call at home. 3:29:96, parent Friday, about 7 p.m., thought I heard noise in the back deck, but didn't investigate because I was home alone with the kids and didn't want to act paranoid. About 8 p.m., when Mark got home, he found pictures had been left on garage door, maybe stuck in crack, so they fell down as he opened the garage door to pull in.
All right, using this as an example.
That's what I'm offering.
Using these as an example, it does sound kind of loggish to me.
I don't know that any of these things were contemporaneously recorded, and I reiterate all the objections that I've just made on due process, confrontation, and various rules of evidence, and I hope I don't have to repeat those.
And why don't we have the witness here to indicate the contemporaneity?
Because she committed suicide?
Pardon me?
Because she committed suicide?
That's not the finding in this case, is
The court has
it?
already made the finding, the admissibility finding, that supports the district attorney's position, and your objections are overruled. And I'm assuming, because you have not voiced any other, that you are not claiming that any of them is repeating the hearsay of others or hearsay accounts of others, nor speculating or the like.
Well, I may. He didn't read anything that was that. So, and hang up calls are, you know. I mean, mostly you read about hang up calls.
And on those, I'm going to overrule your objections. And on the descriptions about photographs apparently found, including those which attribute remarks to the defendant, I'm going to overrule those, all for the reasons which are evident from prior statements of the court and the rule of the state versus Jensen. So if there are others, then I'll let you have a continuing objection. And in violation of my general principles, I'm going to let you have a continuing objection on those lines. If you have other objection, however, and illustrative, as I say, is incorporating speculation or hearsay of others, you'll have to voice those separately.
No, I understand. I mean, that's fair. I mean, if there's a second layer of hearsay as to some particular entry, and I feel like, but my complaint is about the whole thing.
I know it is.
That's how I've registered.
And it's overruled. Okay, anything else?
I just, the stuff that's admitted, do I leave that with the clerk?
This whole courtroom's going to be locked up. So,
Enjoy the evening.
Counsel, are you going to be objection to the evidence being left here